Thank you, sir. Are we ready? Sheila, we ready? I'm going to call the meeting to order. Monday, March 20th, 2006, 7 o'clock p.m., the Homestead City Council regularly scheduled meeting. This evening we'll have the invocation by Reverend Jean Frank Alfredi from the Evangelical Baptist Church of Homestead, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by the Police Explorers and Councilwoman Linda Bell. Would you all please stand?
I can see him in the audience. I don't see him in the audience.
We're going to ask Councilman Norman Hodge to give us the invocation. Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's bow our heads in prayer. Heavenly Father, we'd like to thank you for this opportunity to be able to fellowship with one another. Father, we'd like to thank you for an opportunity to be able to celebrate our freedom in choices and decisions that will be made tonight. And Father, we ask that you continue to bless each and every one that sits at the head of the helm. And Father, we ask that you grant them with wisdom and knowledge and the understanding that you may have them to make their decisions according to your will. Father, we ask that you continue to bless this great city. And Father, we ask that you continue to bless this great country. Father, we ask that you look upon those that are fighting for the freedom that we're now utilizing. And Father, look upon their families and protect them and give them the comfort and joy and peace that we know that you are able to give. And Father, we ask that you just look on each and every one of us here tonight, Father, that we may be able to look beyond ourselves and serve one another as you commanded. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Every cousin. Over Hodge.
Please join with me as we pledge our nation's flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Over Hodge. Hey, over Hodge.
You may be seated. I want to thank Pastor Hodge and the Police Explorers and Councilwoman Bell for the pledge. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Warren.
Here.
Vice Mayor Losner.
Here.
Councilwoman Bell.
Here.
Councilwoman Garner.
Here.
Councilman Hodge.
Here.
Councilman Porter.
Here.
Councilwoman Waldman.
Let me put on the record that Councilwoman Judy Waldman is at the Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau Board of Directors meeting, and she's our representative on that board. She won't be here this evening. Any additions, deletions, or deferrals? None, Mayor. Special presentation. We're honored this evening, ladies and gentlemen, to have a good friend of the people of the city of Homestead and a very fine county commissioner, Commissioner Katie Sorensen. Would you come forward?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for that kind introduction, and good evening, council members and citizens of Homestead. I'm happy to be here with you tonight to talk about a legislative proposal that I started working on perhaps a year ago, and I would love to get your support. The issue is, I'm calling it the empty nester proposal, and the issue is this, that so many people have bought homes and purchased them a while back, and because of the Save Our Homes constitutional amendment, you get to have your assessments increased by only 3% or consumer price index, whichever is less. Now, the problem with that is that for some people, Save Our Homes has become stuck in our homes, because when people go to move and to downsize, what they find is that even if they're downsizing and they're buying a home of equal or lesser value, their taxes can sometimes triple or quadruple or go way up in one way or another. So let me give you a couple of examples. A single-family home purchased for $153,000 in Miami Gardens in 1996. The house is over 3,900 square feet, has 4 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, and if the family currently living there wants to downsize, perhaps into a home half the size that costs $250,000, they would actually have their ad valorem taxes increased from the current level of $3,529 to $5,148. So while they'd be cutting their living space in half, their ad valorem taxes would rise over 50%. It really makes no sense, but it was one of those unintended consequences that Save Our Homes did. So what I'm proposing is what I'm calling the empty nester amendment to the Constitution. And it's designed to narrowly focus this so that you'd have to be over 55 or permanently disabled. You could only take your homestead exemption with you, or the Save Our Homes exemption with you one time to a house of equal or lesser value and smaller, equal or less size. And it would have to be purchased or newly constructed as a replacement for the principal residence. So it would apply only to homesteaded homes, and it would be located within the same county. Now, what's interesting about this is that it would allow seniors and people who are empty nesters to enjoy the freedom to choose housing that better meets their needs. It would also increase the housing supply for... If it's for me, tell them I'm busy. Thank you. It would also allow them to allow other people to move into those homes, because perhaps these 4-bedroom homes where 2 people are rattling around, you know, it's just too big for them anyway. So it would free up some of that housing stock. Now, there is a proposal, there are several proposals in Tallahassee, and the ones that are closest to mine are sponsored by Marcelo Llorente in the House and Bert Saunders in the Senate. And when I say they're the closest to my proposal, is because they don't have an age restriction at this point, although the Florida Association of Counties is advocating for an age restriction. The idea being that since this was originally supposed to help seniors, if you have people do it and they're much younger, presumably they're still on the upswing in their earning potential, so they don't need this as much. And for counties and cities to have this kind of portability be anytime, any place, it would really have a negative impact on our counties and cities' budgets. So while there are proposals in Tallahassee and Carl Domino in the House has one, to allow it any time, I think for us as elected officials, the more narrowly tailored proposal is one that would benefit our citizens but also keep our budgets intact. I've submitted a paper for your consideration to give you some other examples, and if you're interested, I'd love to have a resolution. I've had resolutions passed by Palmetto Bay and Coral Gables, and did I give it to Pinecrest or not? I think Pinecrest has passed one as well, but most people who hear about this proposal intuitively just like it because it makes a lot of common sense, but it would also benefit a lot of our citizens who feel stuck and would like the opportunity to move. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, Mr. Mayor.
Any questions?
Comment.
Councilman McDowell?
Thank you. You know, Katie, I have been hearing little winds of this from the Florida House, so it's good. And I think that the more finely tailored and finely crafted a bill is, the better, because it would remove the ability for large loopholes, which is what we find often on the first year of any type of legislation. You usually spend the next 2 or 3 years cleaning that up. So I think the one-time move, I think the age restriction, I think that's good, because while we know that we need to build in some type of protection for seniors and people who want to move and who want to downsize, we don't want to create such a system that's going to harm all the different cities and municipalities and the counties as well, as far as ad valorem taxation. So of course I haven't read this, but I'd like to take a good look at it, and I think that this is possibly a very good solution to what I saw as some giant loopholes of people being able to bypass ad valorem, pass out on ad valorem and hurt the cities, and that's the last thing we wanted to do. But I think from what I'm just listening and gazing over quickly that you've built in those protections. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Well, I certainly, Commissioner, supports it 150%. I think it's, when you look at the increase in taxes of people trying to buy a home, and you talk about affordability, this is one way of having our seniors that no longer have a household of kids that want to downsize, they can move and not be impacted with doubling the taxes. I think it's a very good idea, and I'm certainly in support of it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Any other comments? Anyone want to move this resolution forward? Moved by Councilman Hodge. Is there a second?
I'll second. That's moved to form a resolution.
Yes, put the resolution in.
Yeah, I'll second.
Moved by Councilwoman Bell. Any other comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Great to be with you this evening.
Thank you. Item 5B was a presentation by Dr. Jean Jacobs, the president of Miami-Dade Community College. But she called, she's out ill this evening, so we will be rescheduling her presentation next month. 5C is the presentation of Officer of the Month, Officer John Monaco, Councilman Porter, Chief Roll.
Not a problem.
Hey, come on. I can get my mom and dad to come.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, City Council, Mr. City Manager, our Officer of the Month for January is Officer John Monaco. Obviously, he has his wife Julie here, his children, parents, maybe some other family members, I'm not sure. Is there any more coming, John? I don't know. Okay. Of course, we have Chief Al Roll and Major Scott Kennedy, and of course, Councilman Jeff Porter, who's our chair of the Public Safety Commission. Let me tell you a little bit about John. He's been with our department for 11 years, and before coming to Homestead, he was a motorcycle officer with the City of South Miami. We were very fortunate to get John. He spent several years there and came on with our department. I've worked with John in the Detective Bureau many years ago, worked robbery, some other types of crimes. He's also received Officer of the Month on many occasions. And so this is another notch in his belt. He's been a K-9 officer for a while, and I'll just go over some of the things he did during that month. He made a total of 11 arrests during that month, 3 felonies and 8 misdemeanors. Important point on that is 9 of those were self-initiated, which means he was not dispatched to the calls. He went out there, made the arrest on his own. One of the highlights of his arrest is he handled a burglary of a motor vehicle in progress. He responded to that, set up a perimeter with his canine, and was able to apprehend the subject. The big thing about this subject, this individual was a homicide subject, wanted subject. So by him apprehending this individual with his canine, he got basically a murderer off the street. So great job from John on that. He was nominated by his two sergeants, and I'll just read a little bit what they said about John. Officer Monaco sets a certain standard for himself that he maintains. He presents himself in a professional manner, takes great pride in being a canine officer. He continually shows enthusiasm about his job and is always willing to assist with other officers in the common goal of keeping our community safe. As a result of his continuing hard work and enthusiasm, it is my pleasure to recommend Officer Monaco for Officer of the Month. So, again, John, congratulations. Officer of the Month, January 2006.
I have the distinct honor of being the representative from the council that gets to stand up here and praise the police department and obviously you tonight for being chosen by your colleagues and your superiors as Officer of the Month, and it's become quite an honor amongst the rank and file to be able to achieve this and be recognized, and we want to be able to, as a community, pay back. And there's a list of businesses in the community that want to thank you for doing such a great job, and there's some dog bones for King. We want to make sure to recognize you couldn't do it without your partner, and we're glad that I think the Junior Women's Club has provided vests for all your dogs because they're important to the police department, no less significant than the officers that we have. But on behalf of the business community, they have awarded you the plaque which I'll give you. The City Attorney's Office is a $100 check. First National Bank of South Florida is a $50 savings bond. Community Bank is a $50 savings bond. Tony's Sub and Grill is a free meal of your choice. Ferguson's Jewelry is a $75 gift certificate. Ruby Tuesdays is a $25 gift certificate. Global Technologies Partners Inc. is $50. Logo Store on Old Dixie is a $50 gift certificate. Carl Pelt, Goodyear and Tire is a $25 oil change. Homestead Transport and Storage is a $25 check. Dale Blake from Blake Chevrolet is a $300 value detail, tire rotation, oil, lube. Captain Car Wash is a $20 free car wash, or $20 value car wash. Evolution Inc. is Paul Kruger, a $20 gift certificate. Anita Jensen is 2 memberships for the Homestead community concerts, and Stick and Stein is a free pool stick so you can go and play some pool on your off time. But on behalf of the mayor and the city council, I'd like to present you with this plaque that says, presented to Officer John Monaco for being selected Officer of the Month for January 2006, and you are also in the running for the Officer of the Year, which is a really, really nice plaque. But congratulations, John. Thank you.
It's always a real honor to get this award. I'd like to first of all thank Captain Foglia, Chief Roll, Major Kennedy for continuing the Officer of the Month program. Councilman Porter, like you said, it's very important. I think it brings out the extra that officers need to feel, from the community, that everybody still likes to see a good job well done. I'd like to thank, first and foremost, God for, may all the glory and honor be His. I'd like to thank my family for standing behind me. A couple more years, guys. I'd like to thank everybody on my shift, my squad, my supervisors, the administration, for all standing behind me and being there to back me up. It really means a lot, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. It's not something I do all on my own. With everything, you got to have backup. You got to have other people there. You got to have everybody from the dispatcher down to the jailer is behind you, and it's a whole team effort. So I really appreciate it, and I hope I didn't leave anything out. God bless you all. Thank you. We'll move on to item 5D, which is the recognition of the Mayor's Youth Council sponsors. Councilwoman Garner.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I just want to make a correction. That was the Girl Scouts of Homestead in the Redlands that made the vest donation. The juniors did purchase a dog for the Homestead Police Department, but that was about a year and a half ago, so the credit goes to the Girl Scouts for those vests. I'm here tonight with the Mayor's Youth Council. Can I get the members who are here to come up? You've been hearing about our trip to Washington for a long time now. And next council meeting, I won't be here because we will be in Washington. We're leaving April 10th. We'll be back on the 13th. The group here has done a lot of work fundraising, but at about $1,000 a person for this trip, we couldn't have done it without the community support. So I'm here tonight to thank all of our contributors, and there were a lot of people that helped us out. Mr. Mayor, can you please come over here and help me give out these awards? You want to say anything? Okay, first, from Jeannie Holmes, I believe we have someone here to accept the award. Nelson Graverman. Is Nelson here? No? Okay. Please thank them anyway. On behalf of Michael Ladner, Jen Helms is here to accept. From MVRT, we have President Renee Taylor. Good. Why don't you guys go ahead on up to the front. We're going to take a picture of everybody. From Colonial Investment Properties, we have someone here on behalf of Jean Garcia. I want Mo Hoxa to come up here real quick. He's from Lumo Print. He's one of our mentors. Mo supplied us with the polos that they're wearing. He's been at almost every one of their events, and he's really great. He's a great business person. He's there giving them positive advice, and we just really appreciate you, Mo. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
From All Air of South Dade, we have Rocco De Benedetto.
What a good man.
From Bradford Printing, we have Bart Bradford. I don't know if you guys know Bart, but he's available for printing for every organization that I know. This man is awesome. From Captain Car Wash, we have Sheila Bates, the store manager. And I'm not sure if anybody's here from the Kiwanis Club, but they helped us out as well. And also CIP Group of Homestead, Mr. Sanchez could not attend, but he said thank you.
Everybody, thank you for all that you've done. It was really kind, and we appreciate everything. Again, thank you.
It's part of it. It's not a problem, it's just that it's part of it. You're going.
The theater opening's been rescheduled to the night before I'm supposed to leave to go to Washington. A few days Thursday the 6th. Those dates are always subject to change. It's supposed to be the soft open on the 31st, which we already have the youth mission. They don't check with anyone, they just schedule.
Councilwoman Gahn, I just want to, on behalf of the mayor and the vice mayor and the council, just thank you for your leadership and for the outstanding job that you and so many of the volunteers have done to make this trip possible. So I too want to thank the sponsors and for your effort. It could not have happened without your support, but it means so much for the young folks in our community. And I think this trip is going to be a signal to other young folks that the Mayor's Youth Council is really the organization we're involved in. And Amanda, I didn't believe it was going to happen. You've done an outstanding job, so thank you for your leadership.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor, we also have in the audience some of the local Boy Scouts and their leader, Scoutmaster David Shafter, is here with Troop 413, and they have a quick announcement they'd like to make from the podium.
Sit down. Go sit down. Go sit down. I don't have a problem telling him to go sit down. And he did.
Most important.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chambers and the citizens of Homestead. My name is David Shafter, and I'm the Scoutmaster for Troop 413, our local Boy Scout troop here. And this evening we have 3 Scouts that are working on their advancements.
I'm sorry. We used to yelling at the kids, so they probably heard me anyway. But anyway, we have 3 Scouts here this evening who are working on their advancements, and one of their requirements is to attend a council meeting. And another reason why we're here is our troop is raising money for summer camp, and one of the events that we're having that the kids are presenting is a spaghetti dinner, and it's April 22nd at the First United Methodist Church, and the tickets are $5 per person, and we do have takeout available. And for anybody that has a business here, if they would like to post this in their window or take it home with them, we have more than enough for you, I think. And I think that's about it, but I thank the Chambers and the citizens for allowing us to speak. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, we have the motion for the consent agenda. Does move for approval?
Move it, Mayor.
Moved by Councilman Hogg, a second.
I have a question on that, Mayor.
Okay.
One of the items was pulled, and I have a question about what's going on with that one item. It's a use agreement with Clark Davis for a to-be-named college. Even though it was pulled, it's still in here. So what's happening with that?
We put it back on the consent agenda, Councilwoman, for approval by Mayor and Council.
So it's back on there?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Public hearing ordinance land use items?
Please be advised that the following items on the agenda are quasi-judicial in nature. If you wish to comment on any of these items, please indicate the item number you would like to address when the announcement regarding the quasi-judicial item is made. An opportunity for persons to speak on each item will be made available after the applicant and staff have made their presentations on each item. Swearing in. All testimony, including public testimony and evidence, will be made under oath or affirmation. Additionally, each person who gives testimony may be subject to cross-examination. If you do not wish either to be cross-examined or sworn, your testimony will be given its due weight. The general public will not be permitted to cross-examine witnesses, but the public may request the counsel to ask questions of staff or witnesses on their behalf. The full agenda packet on each item is hereby entered into the record. Persons representing organizations must present evidence of their authority to speak for the organization. Further details of the quasi-judicial procedures may be obtained from the clerk. In accordance with Code Section 2591, any lobbyist must register before addressing the council on any of the following items. At this time, council members must disclose any ex parte communications concerning any items on the agenda.
Mayor. To disclose that on item 18, at the time this was noticed for the planning and zoning hearing, I was contacted by a neighboring homeowner who wanted general information on the master planning and zoning processes and also requested who the contact person would be here at the city with respect to this specific matter. And today I was also contacted by someone just to make sure that this item was in fact going to be heard tonight.
At this time, the clerk will swear in any persons who wish to testify in any quasi-judicial item.
Please stand and raise your right hand. I state your name. Hereby swear or affirm the information I present shall be the truth and nothing but the truth. So help me God. Thank you.
Mayor, Council, I have a little I don't need to read into the record before I go into these specific items. I'd like to state for the record, prior to the public hearings on the following final plat approvals, that Development Services has been informed by the city's traffic consultant that there now exists a level of service standard overcapacity issue along portions of Campbell Drive from 152 to 162 and possibly extending further to the east. As such, we are actively working on a number of strategies to address the situation and will keep all of you informed as the matters unfold. We have a number of developments that failed to meet concurrency due to the level of service standard overcapacity issue along Campbell and will need to mitigate the proposed impacts accordingly. We have identified some improvements that would alleviate overcapacity and will be proposing that mitigation to the appropriate applicant who are affected. Due to the scope and nature of the problem at hand, we feel that it is extremely important and prudent for the city to validate and review the traffic transportation data and analysis submitted for the following final plats we're going to look at, in order to ensure that we are compliant with both our code and state law concerning adequate public facilities and concurrency. We would ask that each of the following condition be added to each of the final plats that we approve tonight. Due to failing level of standards along Campbell Drive, staff shall reevaluate the submitted data and analysis for traffic impacts to determine accuracy and code compliance. If such reevaluation determines inaccurate data and analysis was generated and utilized for the traffic impacts by the proposed development, the applicant shall be required to mitigate any impacts in order to alleviate failing level of standards and roadway overcapacity. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, at this time, the applicant has requested that tab 12 and 13 be deferred at this time.
These are the specific items.
The tabs, yes, on the first and second.
12 and 13?
12 and 13 be deferred.
Okay, so those would be items 7A and B. It needs a motion.
I'll move that.
Moved by Councilwoman Bell as a second by Councilman Hodge for deferral. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Excuse me, Richard, is it to a date certain?
No.
Not at this point.
That would move us down to item 7C, which is a resolution of the City of Homestead, Florida, granting final plat approval for Fernando's Place at Oasis, located in the middle of the Oasis PUD, west of Southwest 147th Avenue, north and east of Mediterranean Avenue, and south of the C-103 Canal, as legally described in Exhibit A, a 25.03-acre site consisting of 148 cluster single-family units and providing for an effective date.
Is there a motion for final plat approval?
I'll move it, Mayor.
Moved by Councilman Porter. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Hodge.
Question?
Question, Mr. Porter?
Conditions apply to all the finals, so that this is part of the condition.
The resolution really needs to be amended to add that condition to each approval. So you need to make a motion to amend, please.
I'll make the motion to amend it.
I'll second that.
Moved by Mr. Porter to amend, second by Councilwoman Bell. Any further discussion? This is a public hearing. Any comments from the audience? Any comments from the audience? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Any final comments from council? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Vice Mayor Rosner?
Yes.
Councilman Porter?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bell?
Yes.
Councilman Hodge?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item 7D is a resolution of the City of Homestead, Florida, granting final plat approval for Antigua at Oasis, located south of the C-103 Canal, north of Southwest 320th Street, Maui Drive, and east of Southwest 147th Avenue, within the Oasis Planned Unit Development as legally described in Exhibit A, a 22.58-acre site consisting of 98 single-family units and providing for an effective date.
I'll move it with the amended language, Mayor.
Moved by Councilwoman Bell with the amendment, second by Mr. Hodge, Councilman Hodge. Any initial comments from council?
Mayor, one thing.
Mr. Porter?
Every time we do this, I think we confuse the community by the fact that this has been heard over and over and over and over again, and it sounds like there's a new approval for a new slate of homes. Final plat, would you just please explain what final plat truly is? Some of these are even already built, correct?
Yes, sir. Basically, Mr. Porter and members of council, what you have is we do a T-plat, which is running again with the site plan and rezoning if necessary, and council looks at it and approves it, and they continue on. Then they go through the process of actually doing a final plat, which is all the legalities of the same information that we have done earlier, and it gets codified as far as the legalities of it. We have to verify it again, and then it goes to the county as a final plat. Once they have the final plat, they're able to actually close on the properties. But at T-plat, we allow them to continue along with the whole harmless letter in the meantime. This was originally reviewed in November of 2004.
This is just the final wrap-up
Yes,
of the
sir.
project that started in November of 2004.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just for clarification.
I understand.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Any other comments? Is this a public hearing? Any comments from the audience? Any comments from the audience? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Any final comments from council? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Porter?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bell?
Yes.
Councilman Hodge?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Rosner?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item E is a resolution of the City of Homestead, Florida, granting final plat approval for Raul's Place at Oasis, located in the southwest corner of the Oasis PUD, north of Southwest 328th Street, North Canal Drive, between Southwest 152nd and Southwest 147th Avenues, and south of the C-103 Canal, as legally described in Exhibit A, a 23.7-acre site consisting of 96 single-family units and providing for an effective date.
Move with the condition, Mayor.
Move with the condition by Councilman Porter. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Hodge. Comments from council? If not, I'll open the public hearing. Any comments from the audience? Any comments from the audience? Some here.
Good evening, Mayor. John Burgess, 655 Southeast 30th Drive. I just want to make sure that the city's going to, we had the issue of the berm or the wall and all that back there, and I just want to make sure that somebody in the city is keeping an eye on this and that that berm is going to be built correctly for drainage and all that back there. We're getting to a point where it's almost there, and some of the neighbors thought the way the agreement was written that it should have been built already.
which is questionable, but we just want to make sure that the berm is coming along and that somebody from the city is keeping an eye on this for the neighbors out there. A comment I can probably tell you that maybe will take care of Mr. Bridges' concern is the person who's going to verify that the berm gets put in is me, period.
You're keeping an eye on it.
Pardon?
And you're keeping an eye on it.
Yes, I'm not too sure this is the proper one forward, but I know where it is and I will keep an eye on it. Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Excuse me, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Any other public comments? Any other public comments? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Any final comments from council? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Bell? Yes. Councilman Hodge?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Losner?
Yes.
Councilman Porter?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item F is a resolution of the City of Homestead, Florida, granting a waiver of plat to Steve Capiello for the division of property totaling .54 acres into 3 separate parcels located at the corner of Northwest 12th Street and Northwest 6th Avenue as legally described in Exhibit A and providing for an effective date.
Is there a motion for approval?
I'll move for discussion with a question.
Moved by Councilman Porter. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Councilman Hodge. Question, Mr. Porter?
This is allowed to be heard because, what is the moratorium? This is because this is single family?
Yes, sir. This will be single family, so it will not be affected by the moratorium.
So if because of the moratorium, the zoning currently is duplex, which doesn't exist anymore because there is no more duplex.
For practical purposes, a single-family house on a large lot, and what the applicant is asking is that they be allowed to essentially create 3 lots. Each of the 3 lots will be in excess of the 7,500 square feet that we require, but because they don't have the 60 feet or so in width, they need to have a variance. There's this process to go through it. If you look at Mr. Sanchez's comments, basically all the other lots in this area are essentially 50 feet wide. So these would be in the same manner of everybody else, and individually more than the 7,500 we use as the basic guide.
So it mirrors what's currently,
yes, sir.
It would mirror what's currently in the community.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Any other comments? This is a public hearing. Any comments from the audience? Any comments from the audience? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Any final comments from council? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Bell? Yes. Councilman Hodge?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Losner?
Yes.
Councilman Porter?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item G is the first reading of an ordinance of the City of Homestead, Florida, granting the request of David Suarez and William Davis for a rezoning from R1 One-Family District to B1A Professional Business Restricted District for property located at 49 Northwest 17th Street as legally described in Exhibit A and providing for an effective date. This is first reading.
Is there a motion for approval?
I'll move it, Mayor.
Moved by Mr. Porter. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Hodge. I see this comes from the planning and zoning with the 7-0 vote.
Yes, sir.
Any comments from council?
Question, Mayor.
Mr. Porter?
Jason, photos.
Any comments?
The question I guess I had was this historically been a residential community. I mean, I guess there's residential around it, and it's I guess it's bleeding from Crone over to the hospital, so that zone in the middle is really kind of turning more commercial.
The best way I can answer that, Mr. Porter, is that the bleeding over, if you want to call it that, is something that we had put in the land use plan. And so while the specific piece of property is currently zoned R1, the future land use is light commercial, and what the applicant is basically doing is saying, I would rather have my facility be in a light commercial, be able to put a small office in it rather than be using a residence. It's entirely possible the house may stay exactly as it is with obviously the required parking, make sure there's handicap access, etc. So if the applicant's here, I may be able to advise you, it may be exactly the same structure you see today.
But I just remember back when there was discussions that there was an area in there that was always anticipated to really kind of do a more commercial or a business aspect because of the the hospital area, the existing hospital?
I'd have to basically answer, yes, sir, that's basically it. And again, it was codified as part of the the future land use map, so that's where it shows at this point in time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Mr. Vice Mayor?
Yes, and I hate to kind of carry forward with some of Mr. Porter's concerns. I was on P&Z, I think back in 2000 when you were on council, when some of these comp plan changes were made. And I think that if this was changed to the master plan designation that's before us tonight, it would have been done in 2000. And what we did is we established some light commercial business, professional office type corridors on 15th Street east of Chrome, from Chrome Avenue to 2nd Avenue, from 15th all the way down to 8th Street, back in the days before even the hospital knew the hospital was moving. And I've asked Mr. Chandra tonight to do some research, and as I said, I sat on P&Z at the time. And I'd like him between now and final reading to make sure that the current map to which we make reference is correct as to this master plan designation for this parcel. It really seems out of place. It's the only residential property that was residential back then and residential today on that north side of Northwest 17th Street and the first walk off of Chrome that got that designation. Certainly the church parking lot, the insurance company parking lot, and all the lots fronting Chrome had or received that designation at that time. And I'm, thinking back, I'm just not certain that the map that we're making reference to tonight accurately reflects what was before P&Z and adopted by the council about 6 years ago. So I'm just asking that between now and final reading, we do clarify that, because I just have nagging doubts in my mind that this one little residential parcel, the whole one on the whole side of that street, was dragnetted in as this master plan designation. And I've had opportunity to see lately that some of the things that were, at least by the current map, established in 2000 in that same neighborhood are just not what I and some of the other property owners remember them to be. And it's entirely possible that I call it over-coloring the map, that somebody's crayons or magic markers went too far across the line. So before we get final approval, assuming it moves forward tonight in a couple of weeks, let's be sure that the maps we're working from are correct, because sitting on P&Z, I don't recall that, and it just seems funny that one parcel hanging out there mid-block would have been brought into that designation.
I have no problem looking into that, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Councilman Bell?
Yeah, I took a drive by this, and essentially we would just be kind of sticking a business office or something in the middle of a neighborhood. It's not like it's along Chrome or it's right next to a current business. There's a home here, a home here. Yeah, I know we've got the church and the insurance company that face Chrome, but this is essentially in the middle of a neighborhood.
Again, I can only tell you the same thing I mentioned to Mr. Porter and I mentioned to Mr. Lasner. We'll look into it. Right now, according to I look at what the future land use map says, it's commercial, light commercial. And I will verify in case there was a mistake in the line at that point in time, but basically that's what it is. And everybody here believed they approved to that as approved at some point in time. I'm not sure if it's the same council or not, but I will check on the map. That's all I can tell you at this point, ma'am.
Yeah, I would really like, I wasn't comfortable when I saw it, I wasn't comfortable what I was looking at, but I could understand why P&Z would vote, considering that the future land use map said it was commercial. So just absolutely to make me feel better as well, I really would like that verified.
I will try to make both of you feel more comfortable.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Appreciate that.
Anything else?
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
Gail Springer with GSD Group. I'm here as a zoning consultant on behalf of the applicants, David Suarez and William Davis. There seems to be a lot of concern about what the future land use map says, and I can assure you that this was all checked out according to what the map reads today. The purchase of this property was based on that future land use map. The applicants would like to turn this property into a mortgage brokerage, a branch office of what they currently have running and operating in Kendall. If you ride down the street, you will see that this is not just one house in a block that is commercial. It abuts to the east, the parking lot for T.R. Jones. On the southeast side of it, it's the playground for the First Presbyterian Church. Yes, across the street, directly across the street, there is a single-family residence, but to the west of that single-family residence, there are law offices. I believe they used to be your law offices, Mr. Rosner, and the parking lot. So that already goes to First Avenue. This would be diagonally across the street from that particular piece of property. So it's not the only house in the neighborhood that has turned into commercial property.
But it is the only one on that side of the street.
Granted.
There are transition lines.
Yes, that is, I will grant you that, except for Tom Jones' parking lot, which begins beyond Chrome Avenue. I have a copy of the future land use map here. I have no problem checking it out. We have no problem checking it out, but I would remind you that this property was bought in good faith based on the future land use map.
Mayor, I have a question. Thank you. James, because the future land use map is designated as commercial in the future, does that mean that we're bound to approve it even if we're not comfortable with it, we don't like the looks of it in that particular neighborhood or whatever? Does that mean because the future land use map says commercial that we have to say yes?
It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to say yes, but if you have a future land use designation, what you always try to do is that future land use designation is then implemented by certain zoning categories. Those zoning categories here would be B1A, which is the most restricted commercial, the office type of uses that you see, and runs the gamut all the way to B2, which is your more heavy commercial. What would happen is if the property stayed residential, it would be non-conforming, and we would be creating, you would be able to maintain a single-family residence there, but should that use ever cease to exist or destroyed, you would follow the non-conformities pursuant to our code. So it wouldn't exist in perpetuity. It eventually would be phased out.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Just one more thing, maybe this would add to your comfort level. The applicants do not plan to change the residential character of the property. They have removed a pool in the backyard. Their parking will be in the backyard. The front of the house will be decorated with landscaping. The trees that are there will remain. Of course, there's a carport area in the front, but they do plan to keep it residential looking. So, in conformance with the neighborhood. Business would operate from 9 to 5. There would be no Saturday and Sunday use of the property. In reality, it would probably be a lot more quiet than residential use.
Mr. Leisman?
Ms. Springer, your comments bring up a question that I had. I'll go to our attorneys and Mr. Chandra. The rezoning is really only the first step. At some point, there will come a site planning process where landscaping plans are approved, lighting, signage, placement of parking. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So some of the concerns that we may have would be addressed then. I guess this is a point where we have to ask, are you proffering as conditions to the rezoning the limitation on the hours of operation, parking in the rear, etc.?
I would have to confer with my clients, but I believe that is their current plan at this point in time, yes. The parking can fit in the rear, and they do not want to change the residential character. They are spending a lot of money for a brand new roof. They're putting in new windows. They're actually upgrading the property.
because this is a rezoning, we really can't condition it the right way for
That would
to
be at site
done.
planning level?
No, the right thing, if they wish to voluntarily proffer a restricted covenant that would run with the property, you could consider that on second, you could consider that on second reading, and they should get it in to the city with those items for second reading.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Wiseman, I just spoke with the client, and they really don't have a problem proffering a covenant to run with this property so that it will stay residential in appearance.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Vice-Mayor. Any other comments from council? This is a public hearing. Any comments from the audience? Any comments from the audience? Now, I agree with the Vice Mayor. I would support approving it for first reading, and we take a look at it. And if you want to go with the cabinet at the second reading, I think it'd be appropriate. Any comments from the audience? You've got a comment, please come up. Give us your name and address for the record.
My name's David Shafter, and just a quick question. Did they get any consent from the neighbors that is adjoining this property?
Mr. Mayor, I have passed out a petition which shows the majority of the neighbors have consented to the rezoning request.
Thank you, Gail. I'll close the public hearing at this time. Any final comments from council? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Hodge?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Losner?
Yes.
Councilman Porter?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bell?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item H is the first reading of an ordinance of the City of Homestead, Florida, granting the request of Eric Johnson for a rezoning from R1 One Family District to B1A Professional Business District for a property located at 75 Northwest 12th Street as legally described in Exhibit A and providing for an effective date. This is first reading.
Is there a motion for first reading?
I'll move it.
Moved by the Vice Mayor. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Hodge. And this is another with a 7-0 vote from the Planning and Zoning Board.
Yes, sir.
Any initial comments from council? If not, I'll open the public hearing. Any comments from the audience? Any comments from the audience?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Gail Springer with GSD Group, and I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Eric Johnson. This property is abutting the next property we're going to talk about as well. And the future land use map shows that this should be professional mixed use. The applicant is currently a mortgage broker and realtor and may I'm not saying for sure, but he wants to possibly open a real estate company, title company, and mortgage brokerage. Is it possible, Mr. Mayor, if we ask the city attorney, can we take the two properties at once? No. Okay.
Good try.
If there's no other comments from the public, I'll close the public hearing. Any final comments from council?
Mayor,
Mr.
Vice Mayor, this falls squarely in what I think the intent was 6 years ago for that professional mixed-use overlay we did within the hospital zone, that it really expedites the reuse and renovations of deteriorating housing and both single-family and the apartment issues in that area. And I think it's really one of the first steps in that rehabilitation of the area lying between Chrome Avenue and the hospital from 15th down to 8th Street. It's a good groundbreaking situation. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Vice Mayor. Any other comments from council? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Hodge?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Losner?
Yes.
Councilman Porter?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bell?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item I is the first reading of an ordinance of the City of Homestead, Florida, granting the request of Eric Johnson for a rezoning from R1 One Family District to B1A Professional Business Restricted District for property located at 1209 Northwest 1st Avenue as legally described in Exhibit A and providing for an effective date. This is first reading.
Is there a motion for first reading?
Motion.
Second. Moved by Councilman Hodge, second by Councilman Porter. Any initial comments from council? Any comments from council? If not, I'll open the public hearing. Any comments from the audience?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Gail Springer, GSD Group. This property lies directly west of the previous property, and it directly abuts across the street the hospital. And they are requesting that the same use, it's professional mixed use on the land use map, and they're requesting a B1A zoning.
And another 7-0 vote from the Planning and Zoning.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Gail. No further comments from council. We'll close the public hearing. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Vice Mayor Losner?
Yes.
Councilman Porter?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bell?
Yes.
Councilman Hodge?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you all very much. Once again, it is a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Legislative matters, Mr. Attorney.
8A is a second reading of an ordinance of the City of Homestead, Florida, amending Article 1 in general of Chapter 2 Administration by creating Section 2-5, Defense of Officials and Ethics Matters, providing for the defense of officials, definitions, defense of officials, request and approval authorization, reservation of rights and immunities, applicability, malicious, frivolous, or groundless allegations, providing for severability, inclusion in the code, and an effective date. This is the second reading and public hearing.
Is there a motion? Motion by Mr. Porter. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Hodge. Any comments from council?
I have a question for the attorney.
Councilwoman Bell?
Thank you. Earlier I asked you, and you answered me well, that if there's any type of guilt that's found, then the party would have to pay for their own legal fees, which is what made me have confidence in this. But I was thinking, what if there was some type of plea arrangement or agreement made when if there's any type of guilt that's acknowledged, then they would still have to pay the attorney's fees? Because I want to make sure.
The way that the ordinance is written is it requires a finding of guilt.
So if there's any finding of guilt whatsoever,
No, I want to be clear with you. The answer to your question is, are fees you're asking me, are fees reimbursable if they make some sort of a plea deal?
Yeah, and the reason...
answer is no.
Okay.
They're not reimbursable, the way that I've written the ordinance.
Okay.
The way that I've written it is it's a finding of guilt, is the way that I've written it.
Right, that makes me a little more comfortable, and I don't know why I was sitting here just thinking about this the other day, but I'm comfortable with the ordinance that if it's a baseless charge, if it's frivolous charge, and it's put something upon a council person because they're being targeted or anything like that, then they should be defended, absolutely. But then if they're found to be guilty, then they should have to reimburse the attorney's fees, and that's what made me feel very confident in this. But I think that if there's any admission of guilt, on any person's, on any party, that they should be responsible for their own legal fees, including me. I mean, all of us, if there's any admission of guilt, not just a finding of guilt, that we should be responsible. I think if we're found, do you see what I'm saying?
I understand that. I just want to make sure that I'm communicating with you, that you're understanding what I'm saying.
Right.
Is that the way it's written, unless there is a adjudication of guilty, there's no reimbursement. Unless there is an adjudication of guilt. So if they're making a deal, most of the time, if there's some arrangement, some sort of an agreed, there's no finding of guilt, or there's an allegation of this and there's an allegation of that. Sometimes there are, but it's not necessary. So you could have a situation where somebody basically pays a fine. There is an agreement, but that is not really a adjudication of guilt.
So then the city would still be paying those legal fees?
So the city would still be paying those legal fees, is the way that it's written. It can be changed, but that's the way it's written, because it was difficult to start to, let's assume that for whatever reason they just decided to, somebody decided to settle the case, and when you start to split those hairs, it's very difficult. It's not impossible to write, and we can change it. But the way it's written now, if there's some sort of a plea arrangement, it's not exactly what it's called in this context, but for the purposes of discussion, you understand what I'm talking about. If there's, then there would not be a reimbursement.
I would feel more comfortable that if it's just absolutely baseless, and kind of like what happened to me. It was baseless. It was somebody else's article that somebody else wrote, ad, somebody else paid for, and then somehow it ended up falling on my shoulders. That was baseless, foundless. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. But if there's a charge and then somebody fights it and then they end up settling, then that means the city taxpayers still pay for that. I don't think they should. So that's my concern. I don't think the taxpayers should pay for that. I think that if we're absolutely not guilty, then we're going to fight this. And then that's right, because we're being targeted or because we're a council person. But I think if there's any concessions given, or I say, well, we'll work a deal, I think we should be responsible for our own.
The problem is that we thought about this and talked about it, and just ended up, because there were so many different variations of it, is that we thought about, let's just assume for a moment that one of the council people who's charged with something, that there's I don't want to use the deal, there is a settlement proposal made to them which says, you're going to pay a small fine, there's not going to be a finding of guilt, it's just, that kind of thing. And, there's all sorts of variations, and it's very difficult to write those, so that I wrote it in the most
I understand. It just seems to me like that could be a loophole for the person not to have, so that's, I don't know what made me think of that.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm just saying that I wrote it to where there's an adjudication of guilt. Someone could say...
And I look at it another way too, Councilman Bell. If, say, for example, there's an agreement to settle at a $500 fine, but if you want to pursue it, it would cost the taxpayer more money. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The legal expense could be exorbitant, where you could just settle it for $500 with no charge of guilt, just a settlement. So it could count, it could work in, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
It could cost us a whole lot more money, where we just like when we settle lawsuits.
I just was a little, at first I was very comfortable with it, and then I got to thinking, well, what if there's some type of a settlement? I'm very uncomfortable using taxpayer dollars if there's any type of finding of guilt whatsoever. And if I think I made my point. I understand what you're saying exactly. Sometimes, a $250 fine is a lot cheaper than spending thousands and thousands of dollars, even if you didn't do anything. Yeah. But then again, I'm a little conflicted about that. I have to be honest with you.
Right. The reason I spent the time is because I wanted you to be clear as to what this provides. We're not the city of Miami where we approve things or we don't.
Right.
I wanted you to understand exactly what was in the ordinance, and that's the way it's written is the way I feel.
Well, I see what you're saying as well, Mayor. I really do. It's a good point. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. I was, the sole dissenter a couple weeks ago, and I wanted to clarify where I was coming from. A couple of my concerns have been explained and met to my satisfaction by the attorneys. One was I was concerned that in an election context that council members are not protected under this ordinance, and I think that's appropriate, that an election, in a charge under an election by ethics election violation, that's not covered here. I think that's very appropriate. I think it probably would give an unfair advantage there, and philosophically I just don't think that is appropriate. It certainly limits it to actions in our official capacity. My other concern is there was no cap on the reimbursement. As an attorney, I can see both sides of that argument as well, but one of my other concerns was if there is an adjudication of guilt, and most of these ethics issues are settled out. There are, I think, arrangements probably made. My concern was that probably if there was an adjudication of guilt triggering the reimbursement, that there may be a lot of bigger picture issues going on there with criminal charges and other problems that there's really no enforcement by the city to recover that reimbursable amount. So I was thinking in terms of either putting a cap in place or having an after-the-fact reimbursement of attorney's fees rather than as the event progresses.
There is not a cap in the ordinance, but the way that I've written it is that each year you either appropriate a certain amount, you appropriate in your budget a certain amount of money for this, and if you say it's going to be X dollars, that's it.
So first charge, first come, first serve.
Well, you can always amend it to add more money, but if you feel like something is getting overly expensive and that the taxpayer shouldn't pay for that, well, you don't need to then increase the budget amount. You can have, put a certain amount in the budget the first year, and it just sort of sits there, And if there's a very expensive case, you're not required to do that. So I think that's a protection on the dollar amount that some other communities have felt comfortable with.
Thank you. And I want us to be protected, but I also want the community to be protected as well. So I think that's a good balance. Thank you, Richard. I appreciate that.
Thank you all. Good comments. This is a public hearing. Any comments from the audience?
Good evening. Angel Road, 2214 Northeast 41st Ave. Just a possible suggestion, obviously I'm not an attorney, but if the trigger were the reverse, if the trigger for reimbursement were a finding of not guilty, wouldn't that basically cover every other scenario?
The ordinance gives the elected official, the way it's written, the elected official has an option. Well, first of all, the problem is, and again, nobody's asked me to advocate this. All of you, I know, will swear under oath that this is coming purely from me, so it's not from them. The problem is that people don't have the money in this community and other communities to hire a lawyer to defend themselves. And that has bothered me over the years. And they don't have $500, $1,000, $2,000, $5,000 sitting around. And so then they're back. Then the reason that I'm trying to what I'm trying to accomplish with this ordinance is not taken care of. There is an option here for an elected official who wants to lay out the money and then wait till if they have a successful defense of the violation, they can come back for reimbursement. But the ones that bother me the most, just doing this for 25 years, the ones that bother me the most are where there are people that I know are innocent, that I've spoken with are innocent, but they are working people, not impoverished, they're just regular working people, and they don't have $1,000 just sitting around in their checking account to go hire some lawyer. And by changing the ordinance.
But my suggestion was just changing the trigger. Instead of triggering a finding of guilty, if you just trigger it upon a finding of not guilty,
the problem is
any agreement would not be reimbursed.
The problem is that in order to get to a finding of not guilty, they would have to go and hire a lawyer and pay a lawyer. And therefore, we wouldn't be accomplishing at least, they have to go hire a lawyer, they have to go pay a lawyer.
But, if they're confident in their case, then, like they say, put your money where your mouth is. If you're confident in your case, then you put out your money, you know you're going to get back.
The problem is they don't have the money.
Okay. Just comment.
Any other public comments? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Any final comments from council? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Porter?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bell?
Yes.
Councilman Hodge?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Losner?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Motion carries.
We'll see how it works out. It's the first ordinance I ever passed. The ordinance of the City of Homestead, Florida, amending Chapter 7, Code Enforcement of the City Code at Article 2, Code Enforcement Special Master, amending Section 731, Schedule of Violations, Civil Penalties, and Article 3, Code Enforcement Citations, amending Section 732, Authority and Purpose, amending Section 735, Warning Prior to Citation, Exception, amending Section 736, Service of Warning or Citation, amending 737, Form of Contents of Citation, filing with court, repealing Section 738, Refusal to sign citation, amending Section 739, Payment of reduced civil penalty, court hearings, amending Section 740, Schedule of Violations and Civil Penalties to adopt an alternate method of code enforcement to provide for hearings of citations before Special Master to make warnings optional at the discretion of the Code Enforcement Officer to provide for hearings to challenge the affidavit of noncompliance of the Code Enforcement Officer providing for severability, inclusion in code, and effective date. This is the second reading of the public hearing.
Moved by Councilwoman Bell, second by Councilman Hodge. Any comments from council? If not, I'll open the public hearing. Any comments from the audience? Any comments from the audience? I hear none. Close the public hearing. Any final comments from council? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Bell?
Yes.
Councilman Hodge?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Losner?
Yes.
Councilman Porter?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Motion carries.
A3 is an ordinance of the City of Homestead, Florida, amending the City Code by amending Chapter 10 Elections by amending Section 10-18 Early Voting concerning early voting for city elections, revising, updating provisions describing scope, applicability, early voting duration, and procedures, opting out of the requirements of Paragraph 2 of Section 101.657 Florida statute, providing for severability, inclusion in the code, and effective date. This is the first reading.
I'll move it.
Second. Moved by Councilwoman Bell, second by Councilman Hodge. Any comments from council? If not, I'll open the public hearing. Any comments from the audience? Any comments from the audience? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Final comments from council. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Hodge?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Losner?
Yes.
Councilman Porter?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bell?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item 4 is an ordinance of the City of Homestead, Florida, amending the city code by amending Chapter 28 Utilities by amending Article 8 Electricity by amending Section 28-256 Street Lighting and Rental Outdoor Lighting Rates by amending Section 28-257 Serviceability by creating Subdivision D Customer-Owned Street Lighting consisting of Sections 28-407 Availability Application, 408 Installation, 409 Terms of Service, 410 Maintenance and Repair, 411 Rates, providing for increase in rates for certain street lighting and rental outdoor lighting, creating rates for provision for customer-owned street lighting, providing for severability, inclusion in the code, and effective date.
Motion by Councilman Hodge is a second. Second by the Vice Mayor. Any comments from council?
One question.
Mr. Porter?
When you said increase of rates, how long ago were the rates looked at for the public's information on the charge of the street lights?
I don't have that information. I don't know when the rates were last reviewed. And of course, this rate, again, is not for energy. It's just for the cost of materials, the increased cost of materials.
Point is, we don't even know when it was looked at last.
No, we don't.
Okay, thank you.
At least 6 years. At least 6 years.
Thank you, Mayor.
This is a public hearing. Any comments from the audience?
Mayor, we just want to make clear that this is not any utility rate increases for the citizens, that this strictly deals with equipment. It deals with cost recovery, playing catch-up here. I just want to make it clear that we're not raising anybody's utility rates.
No comments from the public. I'll close the public hearing. Final comments from council. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Hodge?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Losner?
Yes.
Councilman Porter?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bell?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item 5 is an ordinance of the City of Homestead, Florida, amending the city code by amending Chapter 28 Utilities by amending Article 8 Electricity by amending Division 4 Electric Distribution System by amending 320 Electric Line Extension Policy and Procedure by establishing revised fees and charges in lieu of prior formula for extension of work performed by the city, providing for severability, inclusion in the code, and effective date.
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Hodge. Is a second. Second by Councilman Porter. Comments from council? This is another public hearing, first reading, amending the city code, utilities. Any comments from the public? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Any final comments from council? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Hodge?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Losner?
Yes.
Councilman Porter?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bell?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Final ordinance is an ordinance of the City of Homestead, Florida, amending the City Code of Ordinances by amending Chapter 30 Zoning, 4 Supplemental District Regulations, 2 Off-Street Parking to amend the requirements for the size and design of automobile parking spaces, providing for severability, inclusion in the code, conflicts, and an effective date.
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Hodge. A second? Second by the Vice Mayor. Any comments from council?
Much overdue.
Much overdue.
And I'll tell you, some of these little small scale, the conversions we looked at tonight, this is a common sense and practical and really a cost savings for those small business people that want to convert buildings to business for the parking requirements.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Any public comments? Any public comments?
Ed Powell, 2274 Southeast 27th Drive, Keysgate. Also, I'm proudly wearing my planning and zoning shirt that was distributed last meeting. During planning and zoning, when we discussed the size of parking spaces, prior to my coming on the planning and zoning, there was quite an attempt, and finally increasing the size of the off-street parking to 10 by 20 in size, and then suddenly we're now coming back to 9 by 19. Well, if you looked at the vote of the planning and zoning for that issue, I think we were split on it, and some of the feeling of myself and a couple of the other members was you should look at the size of the parking for the area that it serves. And we kind of felt that if you had a little strip mall that had 100 parking spaces or less, that was a different situation than the new pavilion that's coming to town that has 5,000 spaces, and there's only 2 or 3 times in a year that they're ever maxed out. So we kind of felt that maybe there should be a 50 and under or 100 and under, then maybe you increase the size. And particularly, you might have a little strip mall that has a concentrated use, yes, maybe a drugstore, maybe a hair salon, maybe so it's constantly filled with traffic. Then you got a large mall that's filled 2% of the time. So we were split on the, when is it too large, when should there be a cutoff in the number of spaces, whether it's on a square foot basis. Thank you.
Good evening once again, Council. My name is Angel Garot, 2214 Northeast 41st Avenue, Waterstone. As you're aware or may not be aware, on November 21st, the Council voted on an ordinance. There was a...
You're here on public comments, correct? I don't think we've actually voted on the parking space. But you're not here on the parking spaces, right? Okay. Sheila, have we voted on the parking space ordinance?
No.
I didn't think so. Just give us 1 second to finish up on the parking spaces.
Susan Newman, 2835 Fairways Drive, also speaking from the Planning and Zoning Board. If this is the one that we talked about with to make the parking spaces 9 by 19, I did vote against it because I agree with Mr. Powell that if you have a small area, a small strip mall, getting in and out of those slots on 9 by 19 is very difficult. If you have a large project where you have hundreds and hundreds of parking spaces, then I can see where you have a little more option to park farther out if you want a space that you can get your car into. So I want to put on record, if this is the one that's moving those parking spaces back down to 9 by 19, I am against that. I'm opposed to that. Thank you.
Mayor. Vice Mayor. Thank you. Brad, I don't remember which context, whether it was a committee of the whole or a workshop. I think the example that was given by not for a 9 by 19 where it's the entire BJ's parking lot. Is that correct? That they came in on a
Yes, sir.
On a reduced size, and there's plenty of space at BJ's, and certainly I guess the trend is still for smaller vehicles. My wife and I both unfortunately drive SUVs, and I've never felt that there's a problem there. And one thing, Ms. Newman, that I've learned recently that, we're not reducing the number of required parking spaces, we're reducing the size of the parking space, which I think of BJ's is what the new standard will be, but that even though the parking space is required to now only be 19 feet deep rather than 20 feet deep, there are still standards for the area that you need to back into, which is about 24 feet. That standard doesn't change, so you're not really shrinking the parking lot or the turning radiuses, you're only shrinking the box that you park in. Is that correct, Rick?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Any other public comments on the parking?
I have a question, Mayor. So the BJ's parking lot is 9 by 19?
Yes, ma'am. Well, we did, if you recall, when we had the discussion with the DDR, one of staff's DDR was looking for that size because of the impact. And one of the discussions that came from staff was that on a number of projects, we essentially got a council approval of the size of the space, a la BJ, the hospital, etc. And that we felt that rather than putting P&Z and then council in the position of looking at the same thing again and again and again, if most times we've given that away at 9 by 19 because it was big enough that we felt it had to be a policy decision. That's why we brought it to council in the first place. Council basically said at that point they felt 9 by 19 made sense, go do an ordinance. We did, but again, as soon as we do that, we must go back through P&Z since it's a land use issue, and they were split 4 in favor, 3 against. And there was a spirited discussion, and Ms. Newman and Mr. Powell mentioned, in this case, 2 of the people that voted in the -3. And the other people that voted in a +4 apparently didn't come tonight for whatever reason. And it boils down to simply, again, majority rule, so to speak.
Can I ask a question there?
Thank you. Is that it, Councilman Bell?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
The concept of, basing it on a number of parking spaces, or that's relatively complicated, isn't it?
Well, to be honest with you, that we did talk at P&Z about the possibility of having a threshold, so to speak. Let's say, again, I don't care about the numbers we had talked about, let's say 50 or 100. If you have 50 or less, you build a big size. If you got 50 or more, you build a large size. We never went to part and part. And through discussion back and forth, 4 people felt that it would be better and easier to make it all by 9 by 19 and not go to the other version. The other 3 felt the other version made sense. Now, one of the things I will point out based on your comment, Mr. Lazer, as far as the little ones we did for the rezonings, if we didn't do what we're doing now, that which again is like 3 or 4 spaces would be required to make a larger space. When does that become logical? I don't know.
Or they would have to ask for a variance in the parking size.
The problem, I think one of the problems that was brought up at the CAL and that staff had was that this really needed to be a policy decision, because you cannot grant a variance to the parking standard because no one will be able to meet the standard for a variance because it's a self-created hardship. So therefore, the variance can never be granted. So I think that's when staff approached you all about setting forth policy for this.
Let me take the big step at this point. Staff felt that the 9 by 19 makes sense, period, just the way it's written here. Part of P&Z did, part of P&Z didn't. At this point in time, it's 4-3 in favor of as it's written in front of you, so.
I just, was asking a question because I know that the majority of the time that we've had to discuss a lot of these commercial type developments, the parking has been a contentious issue with the size.
Yes, sir.
Meeting all it's like putting a square peg in a round hole. Sometimes it's very difficult to do.
And each of those times, council had to weigh in because it's not something that staff could do. It had to be a policy decision. And again, what you ended up doing was you're being put in a position of going through a policy decision one item at a time, whether it be for the hospital or the BJ's, whether it be for the theater or whatever. And we felt that once we started to look at what this other applicant was looking at, it made more sense not to put you in the same position each time and simply say, since we have basically given it each time, said okay with it, it was time to change it. If we've okayed it at 9 by 19, 9 out of 10 times, it makes sense that it should be 9 by 19 and not go through our aggravation, your aggravation of going through it and going back and forth. That's why we brought it forth as 9 by 19.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Comment?
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. Jen Helms, 47 North Cobb. Again, to piggyback on what Rick said, 9 by 19 is, and what Sue said, 50 parking spots at 10 by 20, and then say you have 51 spots, one at 9 by 19, or vice versa. Picking one measurement makes sense overall versus portions that are a foot by foot larger than a foot by a foot smaller. It just, on a design standpoint, it just makes more sense to pick one spot, one size spot. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Shahada?
Mr. Mayor, council members, just to add to what Rick Chandra said, here in the city manager's office, we think 9 by 19 is large enough for a vehicle to park very comfortably. When you look at BJ's, like Mr. Lager said, he owns a big vehicle and he could park very comfortably. I could park very comfortably there too. The ones we have here in front of City Hall, it's 10 by 20, and you could see when a vehicle is parking there's plenty of room around it. So 9 by 19 is really very comfortable parking space. We recommend approval.
All right, I'll close the public hearing. Any final comments from council?
Just one comment. I know 9 by 19 is okay, but I drive a big car, and it doesn't seem like any space is big enough anymore for me. So when you swing out those doors, you have to be very, very careful, and so I understand it's acceptable, it's a level of acceptability, I'm going to vote for it, but they just do not seem to be big enough. Maybe I need to go to a smaller vehicle, I don't know, but I have a big car, I like my big car, I feel safe on the road, so that doesn't seem big enough to me, but I understand. Thank you.
Roll call, Madam Clerk, please.
Vice Mayor Rosner?
Yes.
Councilman Porter?
The motion was to approve, right?
Yes.
Yes, correct.
Yes.
Councilwoman Bell?
Yes.
Councilman Hodge?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Now we have the public comment area. Any public comments at this time?
I want to apologize for that. Again, going back, on November 21st, the council voted on an ordinance. There was a first motion, a second motion made. It was never opened up to the floor for public comment. I sent an email first to Kurt to ask him, because I really don't know procedure, to ask him if it's a requirement that it be open to the public. He couldn't really answer the question. Then we went over to the city clerk, so it was very nice of him, and she couldn't either. And today I spoke to the city attorney, and he couldn't give me a solid answer either. I wanted to bring it up here, for the benefit of the public and everyone, to see if there's anyone here that could answer that question. Is it required, or can the council just vote without opening up the hearing to the public? And unfortunately, the city attorney just stepped out. Perfect timing.
What issue was it?
This was the issue of the ordinance for association approval to turn on the electricity. And I reviewed the audio. You guys keep the audio files online, so I actually reviewed it, confirmed it, that at no time did, Mr. Mayor, you were presiding that day, did you open it up for the public to be able to comment on that. Now, I don't know if that's appropriate or not, or what needs to be done.
Yeah, I spoke to this gentleman earlier today, and I did take the opportunity to review this. And there's if an ordinance is not passed, there's no requirement that there be a public hearing held. And so that's, in this particular case, there's the ordinance. What the statute says was that prior to enactment of an ordinance, you need to have a public hearing. And so there's no requirement, since the ordinance was not enacted, there's no rules that govern how you deal with this. And so there's really no foul, and the meeting was handled properly. In the case, had the thing gone on, then I know the mayor in the due course would have opened the public hearing, as he always does. Goes the other way, even on first reading, you have public hearing, even though it's not required. So I did take the opportunity to look at it after we spoke this afternoon.
Okay. Just wanted to confirm. After you mentioned that, I kind of thought about that you said that if it's passed, I guess it's a different interpretation, but I would probably venture to say that it was probably written in a way where what they're trying to mean is that the public have an opportunity before a council make a decision, but I guess it's an interpretation. Then I want to ask just a couple comments on that same issue to the council members. After that vote, a lot of the community members basically asked me what happened, why did they go against it, because if we go back, it was a unanimous decision on first reading. Again, this was prior to the election. And then afterwards, we kind of had a flip post-election. I don't know if the election had anything to do with it. But I did want to get some more direct response, because one of the comments that Ms. Bell made was the concept of the legal issue, that lawsuits, etc. But some of the people I spoke to said, well, wasn't the city attorney okay with it? So if the city attorney is okay with it, how is council making, judgment on the legal issue? So that would be one that I would like to get individual clarification from the council members. Also, the other commentary was more like a hands-off policy, that the council doesn't want to get involved with homeowner associations. And some of the commentary that people give me on that is, probably 9 out of 10 developments that are being built in Homestead are homeowner associations. So, they're approving them left and right. I really don't have an answer for that one. Also, the city does engage in negotiations with homeowner associations. For example, I have a draft that's going to be basically a traffic control jurisdiction agreement, which we're going to, actually it's drafted by the city, and we're going to adopt it for our community. And basically what that does is give the Homestead authority to to enforce traffic within our community. So, I mean, that's an example of the city coming to some type of agreement with a homeowner association for the benefit of the homeowner association. So, I mean, that's one example there. So the concept of not mixing public and private kind of, doesn't stand on that there. Also, we actually have a trespass agreement with the city. I don't know if that's what it's called, but basically the private sector would sign some type of agreement to allow the police to enforce trespassing. It's another example of a private and public agreement for the benefit, again, of the community. And last but not least, which is very common, is the hiring of police officers. In our community, we hire off-duty police, and my interpretation, I mean, that's a public and private mix. So I see several, and these are just ones just off the top of my head, where the city does engage the private sector for the benefit of the community.
Mayor, can I address some of Angel's concerns? I'd like to address. Thank you. Angel, if I may, I'm going to address some of your concerns. First of all, I don't want you to confuse a policing issue with an interfering or getting in the middle of a homeowners association issue. Completely different. But let me share something with you. What I found, I understood the reason behind of what you wanted, and when we went with it on first reading, it was because I understood your frustration, and it made you guys feel better. But essentially, it wouldn't have done what you guys think it would have done, because it takes a homeowners association in order to enact it, and your whole frustration is that you're not yet able to be your own homeowners association because your owner hasn't turned the association over to you yet. So you wouldn't have been able to even do what you wanted it to do in the first place, because there would have been no legal association in order to enact that particular ordinance, so that ordinance wouldn't have even benefited you. I'm not finished, I'm on a roll. I'll forget. So that ordinance would not have even benefited you. Second of all, what that would have done is it would have put the city right in the middle and put a huge layer of bureaucracy upon the city, whereby the city would be sending people away or rejecting people for their electric utilities, and that was a legal issue I don't think we belong in the middle of. Also, on top of this, you guys, if you are a homeowners association, you set up and establish your parameters and your rules. And that is what you do. That is within your right. If as a homeowners association, if and when, and hopefully soon, you set up your own rules and your own parameters, you say, you must go through this type of approval process to live in our area. You must do this. If you are going to be a renter, then these are going to be the requirements to be a renter. You must submit this application. We may do a credit check, whatever is legal that can be done, you guys will do. And that is within your right to do it. But now what was happening here was this was throwing it back on the city, that the city was going to deny people the right to get utilities turned on, connected, when they show up with a lease. Now the city was going to have to make sure, was this the association that had this level or this layer of bureaucracy that said that we had to go ahead and get approval from this particular association before we were allowed to turn on the association? That's where the city doesn't belong. That's what I was referring to. You don't confuse that with policing issues. Don't confuse that with what we're talking about here. It's totally, totally different. But I do understand your frustration. You need your homeowners association turned over to you. You don't need the city of Homestead adding a level of bureaucracy to make it hard on certain people to get in there. When you do establish your homeowners association, that's up to you guys to do that. That's up to you, and that's what you guys have the right to do. But it's not the city's right. It's your right.
On the first item that you mentioned, that it's because the homeowner association established, that's incorrect. All homeowner associations are established. There's always a board. They get established from the beginning, whether the homeowners are in charge of that board or the developers are in charge of the board. There's always a homeowner association established.
Right, well, that was my point. The developers are, that's my point, Angel.
But the guidelines are still established. Homeowner associations, there's a statute for them, so they're a recognized entity. There's declarations, there's that make legal. For example, if you guys put electricity to a home, by just taking a look at that lease, my covenants say that lease is null and void. So basically, you're taking a look at a lease and not even determining if it's valid or not. But that's not here nor there. Either way, in my homeowner association, I'm the least one complaining personally. I'm just speaking for the multitude of people in Homestead. We're established. We've evicted people because they're not abiding by our guidelines. It's just a matter of the homeowner association coming to the city and asking for a hand and basically not getting it. I also wanted to give some statistics on rentals in Homestead. I pulled up some MLS statistics. I'm a real estate agent, and I pulled 30 zip codes and pulled up the number of rentals per zip code. I pulled Kendall. The only ones I excluded the beach, because obviously we have high-rise condos and all that. And number one on the list, and I don't know if you're going to be surprised, is 33033. That's Waterstone. Waterstone has currently, as of today, 185 rentals. The second zip code with the most rentals is in Homestead as well, 139. Number 3, which is Kendall, has 92, meaning that 33033 has more than double the amount of rental properties available than Kendall. And we know that we're nowhere near as dense as Kendall. This is a big problem that if you don't address it now, it's going to be, you're just going to have ungruntled people. I don't know how it's going to pan out. Also, if you take a look at homes for sale, same thing. 33033, number 1 on the list. So these are two items that Homestead is coming in number 1. I don't know if it's something to brag about. I don't think it's going to be favorable for Homestead. Number 2 was Kendall, and number 3, again, was Homestead. Homestead has, in 33033 alone, 522 available properties for sale. So while we're looking at all these homes going up and saying, fantastic, there's a good portion of those homes that are actually empty, and we got more and more coming online. So the rental issue is going to be a big problem. Basically, how I see it is what we're going to have on the east side is basically an upscale ghetto, is what we're going to have out there. So we're going to have, on the west side, we're going to have it on the east side too. So I just wanted to voice my concerns in reference to that. And on one final comment also that was touched on that day was, council said they had contacted homeowner associations or staff did, and I was never contacted about it. Lana Horde, very active in the community, she was never contacted about it. I actually got a letter after the hearing from my management company a week after the actual hearing took place, which is not your fault, but in case you're wondering why people didn't come, most people really didn't know about it. And that's it.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Mayor?
Just a couple of, Angel, a couple of comments. When a lot of the sales and rentals, not exclusively, but a lot were in the first, remember the first section in building at Waterstone, where we didn't talk with the developers, and the developers didn't take any precautions to try and limit the number of units bought. I think there was a lot of speculation. And now the houses arrived, they're built. Now what do you do with them? You got to sell them, or you're not going to live in them. That's one thing. And since that time, under your instructions, we took some steps with the developers to say, look, you need to limit. They understood it wasn't a hard sell. That they need to make efforts at limiting, somebody coming in buying 4 units, for example. There are developers out there that you had to put 1. If you resell it within a certain period of time, you have to give them $10,000. There's a whole list of things that these developers have put in to slow just exactly what you're talking about down. And that had the first phase or first part of the phases has slipped through on that until we realized what was happening. And then we were able to tighten that up a fair amount working with the developers. And then on the zip code that you're using, that just isn't Homestead. That's a Homestead area, but that 33033 takes in areas that are outside of the actual jurisdiction of Homestead. So it's so hard. I know I try to do the same thing to get stats, and I got to use these zip codes, and then I have to carve them out a little bit because nothing meets the same configuration as our jurisdictional boundaries, so it does take into effect other areas of the city. But your point's well taken on at least I would say on the first phase in Waterstone. That's all I have to say.
And I just want to comment on your initial concern that there was no public input. I would think the council have been very consistent. Anything that we discuss if I don't call for public input, I encourage you to come up and speak. We don't cut anyone off. I've never said, no, you can't comment. So please feel free to raise your hand and say, I have something to say, just like you did tonight. Just come up and let us know what you have to say. We'll give you that right.
I was actually here that night, and I was going to speak, but out of due respect, until you open up the floor, I didn't want to come up, but the floor was never open. I don't know if the council wants to take that maybe as a courtesy to its citizens that may have been proper, may have not been improper, and actually bring it back, hold it, give the opportunity for the public to speak. They'll have an advance notice, which is maybe another quick comment, is that the agenda gets posted, I believe it's like on Friday. So from the time the agenda comes out till the actual meetings is kind of tight as far as time-wise. I don't know if there's any way that the agenda, maybe not the full whole 9 yards of all the tabs, but maybe the agenda could be posted more in advance so that the citizens that do want to comment on something have a little bit more time to make whatever adjustments necessary. I think that would probably assist in having more community participation if they have a little more time to see the agenda before it's actually going to be heard.
Well, I just wanted to say that not only for your edification, but for the public edification, this council will allow you to speak. You don't have to wait on one of the elected officials say is open for public input. Just raise your hand. You'll be recognized. If I'm not here, the vice mayor will certainly recognize you, and feel free. Any of the elected officials will recognize you to speak on any subject. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Any other public comment?
Can I just ask a question of the manager? If I remember correctly, private gated communities have to have an arrangement with the city in order for the city to provide services, police services to those gated communities, correct?
The traffic enforcement.
Right.
But what an answer of private roads.
So what I'm saying is that's a relationship that has to be established before the city can do enforcement.
That's correct. On the private roads, that's correct.
Okay. Because I remember that being one of the issues with Keysgate, Eastlake, I think. They wanted the police to come in and they had to come forward with a written arrangement or an agreement. Okay. I just want to make sure I was right. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Any other public comments? If not, I'll close the public comments and we'll move on to the business from the city manager.
Just two items. Just two items, Mayor. One, there's the police department and Project SOS is putting on a town hall meeting entitled Preventing Underage Drinking. It'll be on March 28th. The Homestead Police Department and Project SOS is hosting a town hall meeting to prevent underage drinking on Tuesday, March 28th at 7 p.m. The meeting will be held at the Homestead Middle School Auditorium, which is 650 Northwest 2nd Avenue. Food and beverages will be served. We hope you join us in educating the community about the importance of preventing underage drinking. And this is a grant that we have, so this is one of the fulfillments there of putting out this information to the town hall meeting. The second item, also that people may be wondering what's going on with the movie theater. This is kind of a weekly thing for us at Rotary, but actually I talked with the principal today, and there will be a soft opening on 31st of March. A grand opening April 7th, which will be Friday, and then there'll be a limited open April 6th by invitation only, Thursday at 6 p.m. And they think they're going to be ready for this. They've had a lot of starts and stops there, but actually going out there to movie theater looks very nice. It looks good. We're anticipating it opening up very shortly. It's going to happen. That's it, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilwoman Bell.
Thank you, Mayor. First thing, I would like to congratulate Diana Wilson for winning the American Businesswomen Association's Woman of the Year, and Sue Newman sitting there was last year's Woman of the Year, and it was a very nice event, and Diana is very, very well deserved. Also, I attended the military training exercises out at the base this past week, and it was very interesting, and I actually felt very badly for them. It was so hot out there, and they were in their full uniform and their masks, and one of the men actually did pass out and had to call in rescue, but it was very interesting to see the military training exercises. Also, I wanted to give good news about the audit. It looks very good for the city. We are squeaky clean. And Alina, I want to say thank you for the articles that you gave me on retirement funds and alternatives and options that we're going to have to look into. So I thank you for that. Those were, the first one you gave me was a very, very good article. I haven't read the second one yet. So thank you for that. Also, I would like an update on the Redland Company issue. I know, Kurt, you had a meeting on Friday with the attorneys with Redland Company. I know they were given a contract, I think, a couple of months ago, or a month and a half or so ago, and it was a take it or leave it contract, and I want to know if they took it or if they left it.
Well, we did meet Friday morning with Redland and actually a new attorney, which they have. And at that meeting, a couple of things were done. One, no, they hadn't accepted that agreement, the reinstatement agreement at this time. We do have a meeting with Durham on a couple of issues. Shores being one of them on Wednesday. We're going up there. They wanted to go, but we felt that they shouldn't be there during our meeting. This is, working on our permit. There's no other meeting set at this point. Everything remains the same as it's been. There's still a situation of default there.
Well, what I'm saying is, where's the finality? When do we have some finality? Because it was after, it's going to be take it or leave it. This is the contract, and they've left it. Now, are we done? Are we done here? The default, they've been defaulted. We just move forward now. And
well, at the meeting, we requested that they do answer the reinstatement one way or the other. A couple of issues. One, they asked us to put our bills together, which was part of our agreement there. That wasn't the whole thing, but it was part of it, which we're doing and sending to them for repayment. I think there were some stiff penalties involved in our request to come back on to the site, reinstatement, and some financial requirements and some monitoring, very stiff monitoring requirements in our offer, our proposal. And when we go to Durham, depending on the information they're going to be able to tell us, one of the things is what's going to be required to get back on the site, what remediation are they going to require. And my guess is, and that's only a guess, and I'll just say that they want us to call them afterwards and see what Durham said, advise them what happened at Durham, because there may be considerable expense in mitigating what they need then on top of that, and that might be part of their decision process. But Wednesday we will set a definite, after our meeting with Durham, we'll set a definite date.
I don't think our meeting with Durham should have any place in the dealings with Redland Company, because as a permit holder, we deal with Durham, not Redland Company. We're the ones that are taking the heat for that. So I think we need some finality. I mean, I need finality for me personally, but on top of that, I'm getting tremendous amount of calls. What's happening? What's the status? What's the status? And I really have nothing to say. So I'd like, maybe ask our attorney. Richard, what now?
I think this is one of those circumstances where people are looking for some sort of action, but there's no action is required, because the contract with Redland is terminated.
Right.
You use the term done. The contract with Redland at this point is done. It's finished.
Right, but how long are we going to continue this back and forth?
The thing is that, and I just got off the phone with Joe Sorrell, I mean, we're not recommending, and the city's not doing it, and the manager's not doing anything other than acting as they're holding this. They're acting as if this contract is completely done. We're moving ahead. We're taking care of the permit. We're doing nothing with that with them. In other words, we're moving ahead, and we're not expecting them to do anything. We're not expecting them. Joe was very clear with them at the meeting, and just got off the phone with Joe, and he said, listen, we don't want you to leave this meeting with any idea that this is a negotiation, because it's not. You want to accept our proposal, accept our proposal. If you don't want to accept our proposal, it's not. And the comment from their attorney was, it's certainly very clear to me that I'm not leaving here with a warm and fuzzy feeling. So I don't want you to think, and I know that they don't think we're in any sort of real negotiating process, because we're not. We made a proposal to them. If they want to accept it at some point, they'll accept it. But in the meantime, we're moving ahead with everything that we need to do. As if they're not accepting our proposal, we're meeting with them and going to move ahead with the property.
Right.
But there's no action required because the contract's done.
I understand that. But then you just said, if they accept this proposal at one time, when is enough? When are we done? I mean, I know as far as I'm concerned, we're done. But now, how many more meetings are we going to have with
But we're not expecting it. There's no more meeting. There's no more meetings scheduled. We don't expect to have any more meetings. We're not recommending any more meetings. So
the termination's in place.
The termination's in place.
Which is why I still believe you cannot reinstate something that's already been terminated.
But the termination is in place and it's done. You know, to be 100%, if they come to us tomorrow and say, we accept your offer just the way it is, then we bring it to the council, just the way it is. But other than that, there's nothing to discuss.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know how to make it any more final than that. If somebody,
what I want to know is,
I know you'd like there to be some more formal action, but we terminated the contract.
I understand that.
Yeah.
So what? We terminated. We're still meeting. We're still discussing. We're still talking. When is the talking stop? Is what I want to know. I mean, how is in a month from now if they call back and say, okay, now we want to sign the contract?
Ultimately, that's going to be up to you.
Right.
If they come back a month from now and say we totally accept your contract, we're going to present it to the council and you vote on it. It's up to you. Seriously.
Okay.
Seriously. I mean, that's what
it needs to be.
I wish I could say, I've written them a letter, we don't want to talk to you anymore, we don't see you anymore, don't call me, lose my phone number.
But then I think what we need is probably a finality from our city manager, where the city manager says, as a city manager, this is it, we're done. We're not having any more discussions, we're not having any more meetings, because, Kurt, you told me the contract was take it or leave it, they're going to look at the contract, if they don't want to sign the contract, it's over. I think I want that. I want a finality. They're going to sign the contract. We can come back and beat the contract up and discuss it on an open council meeting. Let's do it. If they're not going to sign the contract, then let's be done with them. Let's stop. When is it done?
Well, at the moment, we're not doing anything. Nobody can do anything out there, so we're not like losing any time, or we're not in really any kind of limbo here. It's nobody can do anything until Durham gives us the instructions of what we do. We're moving with the testing, sending that in.
Sure.
And I think, again, I think it was fair that with the new attorney we just meet and let the new attorney know where we were, and we did that. And
very clearly.
Yeah.
Very clearly.
Yeah.
That this is not that we're not negotiating.
Okay. Thank you.
Is that it, Councilman Bell?
That's it now, Mayor. Thank you.
Mayor. I've got a couple. Pinky Buns, Redland Company. We did meet with Kurt and the attorneys on his side and our side. We will respond to we'd like to see what some of the decisions that Durham has in the upcoming meeting with the city. That may make a difference on how we respond, but we are figuring on rescheduling another meeting in the next week or two with Kurt and all the players.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Councilman Hodge?
Nothing at this time, Mayor. Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of quick items. Again, I want to remind you all, if you've not submitted the name of your nominee for the Charter Review Committee, please do so we can get up and running and have something on the November ballot.
You took mine.
And secondly, tentatively at this point, subject to firming up with all the parties, we're going to have our first, all in the same room at the same time, public presentation of style and elements of architecture that we've all been briefed on for the look of a new city hall and begin that public workshop process. But for a couple of years we've promised the people of this community, and if we can pull it all together, and I have every reason to believe that we will, that first step will be on the 28th of this month, either as part of a committee of the whole or a separate meeting just prior to a committee of the whole meeting on the 28th. Greg, do you have anything to add?
No, except that's correct as far as the time. You and I have not discussed whether it was part of or separate from, but we've agreed on the time, and the architect is ready to come in at that point, so we just need to, between you and I guess, and maybe the manager, fight up as part of or in front of or behind, whichever way we want to do it.
Okay, in the name of expediency and good use of time, I want to thank you all for going above and beyond, and all of you being there, I think, on the same day at one time or another to meet with the architects so that they got some clear guidance, some consensus, some guidelines from council as to where they think they'd like to go architecturally. That's all I have, Mayor.
Mr. Vice Mayor, what's the status on, I know we were moving in the direction of eminent domain on, are we?
Kurt, do you have an update on that? I think there was a hearing a couple of weeks ago.
We have the Latimnap property. In these eminent domain hearings, one of the important things is to say that it is for a public purpose, is to get that determination from the court. We have that on Latimnap's case. We had to do some further appraisals on the FIG property there. That's the CAC center there because of the medical, so we have
a portion of the property. Right,
that portion of the property, that is being scheduled now that we have the appraisal for a hearing. And then the leasehold. We had a hearing on the leasehold. The attorney from the leaseholder requested and the court granted a little more time. He wanted to look at some more information, and he has we're resetting that, and that should be meeting here shortly. I don't have a date to reset for the leasehold, in which, again, it wasn't, he let him reset the time, but it wasn't because there was any question about a public purpose. I don't think we're going to have a whole lot of trouble getting that determination. And then once you have that determination, basically all it is what it's...
How much?
Yeah, how much are we going to spend? I will say on the property that we own, the dollar store, the Mega Dollar Store's lease was up. We gave them 60 days. They requested some extra time, so we gave them 60 days to get their affairs in order and find another place to go. I mean, we don't want people hanging there and having to eject them and them holding on continually, so we did not renew the lease. We just said we'll give you 60 days to find another location. And they've known, that's what I'm saying, I don't want to repeat that, they've known that they had this coming up and didn't take the appropriate action. So we gave them 60 more days because it really doesn't...
We don't have it in the immediate. And Kurt, isn't it also correct that with respect to some of the other tenants, we're kind of maybe giving not necessarily assistance, but maybe some insiders' perspective on, well, check with this building owner, or perhaps you can go here. We're not certainly leaving them to cast adrift on their own, that if we're going to come in and in effect remove these tenants. And it's important to remember that the users of the building are not the owners. It's a two-tier process. We have the ownership issue as well as the tenancy issue, and we're working actively, I think, with all of the leaseholders to assist them to stay and continue to do business in our community.
That's good. Correct. Anything else, Mr. Vice Mayor?
No, that's all, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilman Porter?
Well, thank you, Mayor. I just basically thought I'd mention a little bit about some of the legislative issues that we've been tackling up in Tallahassee. And I know the last meeting I wasn't able to attend because, I was in Tallahassee trying to work on some of these issues. Some of them are going very well, and some of them have kind of run into some brick walls. But, we are looking for a tax rebate from the state similar to what they've already done for the Marlins, the Orlando, well, not the Orlando Magic, the hockey team in Tampa. Anyway, there's a series of sports teams in the state that get a tax rebate. They get taxes refunded back above what is created. They get a portion of that back. And this tax would come back to the city, and it's basically generated off of the sale of tickets and accessory items that are sold at the Speedway, Homestead Miami Speedway. And that is probably gotten farther this year than any other time that we've ever talked about it. Not to say that it will go forward, but it's couched that the monies go back to the city. They don't go to the operator, and it would give the city the ability to improve infrastructure, market, public safety is a part of the equation that we would be able to use them. It's very good for the city if we could get this thing through the legislature, and they seem to be listening because the money does come to the city, doesn't go to the operator like it did with the Marlins and some of the other major team owners. The other issue that we're trying to get a look at is the ad valorem taxes, the fact that the city is the only governmental entity that's being charged taxes on the Speedway. If it were owned by the county, they are immune or exempt, and if it were owned by the state, they are immune or exempt. But because it's owned by the taxpayers of the city, we're being held responsible for the taxes. And we as a community think that's kind of an injustice and would like to see that being looked at in the Constitution. It will take a constitutional amendment because the Constitution was, somebody from the city was asleep when they wrote the Constitution. And we don't get a fair shake in that. So the legislature has to give the approval for that to be allowed to be put on the Constitution, on the vote for a constitutional amendment. So again, it's only a one-step effort towards getting hopefully some relief for the taxes on the Speedway. One of the other issues that we've been looking at is the fact that currently blasting is controlled by the state, and there's no notification process that anything outside the city's jurisdiction, there's no notification to the city at all. So we've asked for some legislation to basically notify municipalities of any impending blasting issues in the surrounding area, because we've had some right outside the city that have been we didn't know about. We just woke up one morning and there it was. And so we wanted that to be addressed at the legislative level. The one that seems to be getting the most amount of a problem is the open container issue. Currently, the city, we have to pay we have to pay the judges and all the court costs and all the cost of writing a citation for an open container. Gainesville is another city that has a problem. I'm sure Tallahassee has a problem. Anything where you have large congregations of people and you have to enforce your open container, it's borne by the municipality. And I think the penalty at this particular point is about $100, and it cost us about $150 just to try it. So consequently, it tends to go unaddressed, let me just say. And this would allow the state, or this would require the state to pay for some of those court costs, or request that they pay for some of those court costs so we could enforce the rule. One of the other issues that we've really been trying to address, and Mayor, it's kind of on the heels of the concurrency issue that we were talking about. We have approached Turnpike Authority with the need for them to address the evacuation of the Keys in South Florida, because it's currently, the system is only 2-lane from Cutler Ridge to Florida City, and it's our opinion that that's not really large enough to handle what we need currently and what we will be in the very near future, and not even considering the growth in what the Keys are going to do, Upper Keys and Lower Keys. So this has been going on for a year, and Mike Shahada and Julio, we've had 2 meetings in Tallahassee, 1 meeting in Homestead, 1 meeting in Orlando, another meeting in Homestead, and Ken Sorensen has been a champion for us in Tallahassee, Representative Sorensen and Bob Levy. I can't tell you how much Bob has put into this, and we're very close to finding out something. It's a typical governmental procedure of always being able to first tell you no, and then you got to figure out a way to kind of massage it into an area where they can say maybe, and then massage it a little bit more, and maybe you'll get what you need. We've worked with the traffic engineering people and the car count, the numbers count, the population growth, and that's not going to address our problem. They forecast a need for 6 lanes to Florida City in 2032. And they forecast a need for 6 lanes to Campbell Drive in 2021. And then they've slid the forecast, I think, to Biscayne to 2012 or 2015. Anyway, bottom line is, I disagree with the science, but I'm not a scientist, so it's not easy for me to disagree and have any credibility. But from a health and safety point of view, we feel like it's got to be addressed. We've talked to the Turnpike Authority. We've sent letters to our Washington delegation. I know, Mayor, you signed that, and the manager and I signed that to send, requesting that they do a study, a preliminary study, that says there is a need for widening. It's very fortunate that this year we were able to start early on in the session. I think that the mayor, I was there when the session began. That makes a difference. In the past, I think we tried to run up there towards the tail end of the session, and we really kind of not had any success. I'm not saying we're going to have success this year, but we've seen more success this year already in the first 2 weeks of the session than we've seen in the last few years. So I'm certainly optimistic, cautiously optimistic about some of our initiatives. But I do want to say this, that it's unfortunate for South Florida that Ken Sorensen is being term limited out as our representative, because he is a bulldog. When we sit in a room, he works for Homestead like it's his own, and he only represents just a tiny portion of this community. But he's to be commended, and I hope we can get a replacement that's half the man that he is, or woman that he is, because we certainly need them on our side. But all things being said, I think we're in a pretty good position there. We will probably have to follow it with some additional trips. And to Richard Weiss, I want to commend you for your offering up the attorney to go the one day that we needed some help. And Mitch Bierman did a fantastic job, and it's nice having a sharp attorney on your side when you get overwhelmed by all these technical people. But it really did go well, and I think we're way ahead of the curve. But that's basically it, Mayor. Just wanted to bring everybody up to speed on those issues.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. And let me really commend you for your leadership with our legislative agenda. And the public need to be reminded, I think, after Councilman Porter got his feet wet when he was first elected many, many years ago, he took on the responsibility of trying to get us the tax relief on that motorsport complex. And for years he's been traveling back and forth to Tallahassee. And in addition to the tax relief, the sales tax rebate, those are two initiatives Mr. Porter have been working on for years. And when I read in the papers, I think a week ago, that if either one is approved, especially the sales tax rebate, I think it got very good promise. That's up to $2 million a year for the city of Homestead for 30 years, $60 million. Significant. That would be an extremely important initiative for the people of the city of Homestead. Tremendous savings for the people of the city of Homestead. So I just wanted to publicly thank Mr. Porter, because he has been the champion on those two causes for the last 4 years for the people of the city of Homestead. And I'm confident that one of them, maybe both, may get through, Jeff. I'm really confident. And in addition to that, I think Mr. Lobbyist in Tallahassee did send a note to all of us that the $500,000 grant for the cultural, is that the Seminole Theater grant? The senior citizen that we were with the 37, they approved 37, we're right at 37, so hopefully we'll hold on. But that's an additional $500,000 that we may be able to get from Tallahassee this year. So there's some major initiative on the table this year for the city Homestead, and all the elected officials are talking to our representatives and doing whatever they can to make it happen. But I just wanted to publicly thank Jeff, because Jeff I know the trips back and forth, because I hate traveling to Tallahassee with small planes, to be honest with you, but Jeff don't mind, and I want to just publicly thank you for what you're doing for the city Homestead.
Thank you, Mayor.
And I think my major issue, Mr. Manager, you answered earlier, was in regards to the theater, because we've gotten calls we've had 3 dates set and nothing will happen, so I'm pleased that you followed up, and hopefully next month we'll have a good time at the theater. And I don't have any other business. You, Mr. Manager, anything else? Want to thank you all for coming. The meeting is adjourned. Have a good evening.
Thank you. I was joking with Lonnie and Betty that Nick Capetta must have lost his medication. He really must have, the way he wandered out. Yeah,